Gone are the days of formal etiquette. So, what should you do in the maddening social situations you face every day? This is No Etiquette, the podcast where we address modern etiquette questions in a nonsense fashion. I'm Vivian Lee, coming to you from Singapore, and joining me is my best friend, Sophia Bose, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Vivian. How are you?
We have no time for how are yous today, Sophia, because
Sounds
we
good, Vivian.
have a speedy episode with much to cover. Boy, someday we'll go over the etiquette of just breezing past somebody's "How are you?" But for today, we must race ahead. I want to ask you about the history with your friend Lubaba and the wondrous house rules that we have learned that she has. How did you become friends with Lubaba, and what was your early friendship like?
Oh my goodness. Um, so so this was a long time ago. So I was in second grade, probably second or third grade, second grade actually. And Lubaba had just come from England. So I think her parents had been doing graduate school there or something. She had a pretty strong English accent, which was very novel to all of us in our little school in Saudi Arabia with like,
Mm.
you know, and I really, like, I found her to be interesting, but I was also um, fairly in my own world, and I was a little bit shy, and so I didn't really talk with her very much initially. And then I noticed that she would read, like, so she would bring in books, and during lunchtime or something, I remember I had a lot of anxiety about like who I'm going to sit with at lunchtime, even though I think I had mostly worked through that anxiety. But I remember thinking, like, she was so confident. Like, she would just, you know, it didn't matter who she was sitting with or not sitting. Like, it just seemed sort of like she was sort of indifferent to what would happen
Mm.
socially to her whilst lunchtime was happening. It was like it was what she wants to do. And so she would
Mm.
read. And I think that that was really my like moment of, okay, she's like a kindred spirit because this is something that I like
Mm.
to do. And so then we started talking, and um, I think she would ask like how my evening was, for example, and I feel like my life at that point was not very interesting in my mind because I would just go home and read also and like eat. I didn't really go anywhere or do anything.
You were in
And so
second
at one
grade.
it's true, but still, we didn't have a TV, so I didn't even have any like shows to sort of have like this, like, or
Mm.
I guess in second grade, I guess people do watch shows in second. In any case, I didn't have much to report, but then at some point, I think either I had a dream or something came over me, and she like she asked me the typical question of "How are you?"
Mm.
Maybe this is where all the "how are yous" end. Like, it ends in I'm getting ahead of myself. But anyway, she said, "How are you?" And I had to come up with a story. And so, the story I came up with that day was something very little. It was about, I think I had found, like, a shiny rock in my backyard or someplace, and I really like, it was glittering and it was interesting, and so I told her about this rock, and that, like, that I thought it was, like, an otherworldly rock, like, because it was glittering and shimmering in such a way, and I didn't bring it in, so all she had to rely on, well,
Mm.
about this rock was me. And it's true, that rock did shimmer. I think it had, I think it was, like, quartz or something, right? Like, it was a really dark stone, and it did glitter, but, it wasn't otherworldly by any means, but maybe it was, who knows? The next day, when she asked me how I was, I went into a little bit more detail about this rock, and I said how actually there was like a pile of them in our backyard, and there was some sort of construction or something happening, and like there was some sort of excavation that needed to happen, um, and that the more of these rocks were emerging. And then the following day, she asked me, "Oh, like, how was your day?" And so then the story began, Vivian, which I think I've told you this before, but it went from this like little rock that was shiny and interesting in my backyard to an alternate universe where her double was living and my double was living, and somehow we needed to save the world. And that is where that is where that story went. And her my response to her, how are you, continued with these stories, I think, for the next 3 years. So it was until fourth grade or something. 2 years, 2.5 years, 2.5 to 3 years. And by that time, you can imagine the story had gotten quite complex. We were trading letters with our alternates, which I would do with my left hand. And
so she would write letters. She would write letters to your alternate otherworld.
Her alternate. She would want to talk to hers. And
you would write letters back from her alternate.
From her to her. Yeah. And so and so it continued. And I mean, should I tell you how it ended? Do you want me to?
Please. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But at some point, at this point, I'm like 10 or 11 or something. It had been several years.
You were maintaining a universe for her.
It was a universe. I was maintaining it. And, it was starting to weigh on me because I was quite earnest about, I guess it was, I thought she believed me. I thought, she, and I was in this like position where I didn't want to hurt her because she was getting more and more attached to her alternate, which she would, right? Because they'd been writing letters to each other or something.
For years.
I don't know. Yeah. At least a couple of years, and so it was starting to very much like impact my well-being. I was starting to get very guilty about it. And I think also because at that point we were like 12 or 13, and I was like, I knew that at some point she would find out, there's no way I would be able to keep this up. And Vivian, this is a new detail which I didn't tell you because I didn't remember this until like last week. I found an old notebook of mine that I had from back then, and there was a journal entry that I'd written, and I had written how I thought she was starting to suspect.
Oh.
It was so funny to read me saying this. And like I was trying to figure out like how I would, like what I would do. And it was this moral quandary. And Vivian, you're really quite good at helping with moral quandaries, as we know. But this
in
moral
a nonsense
quandary
fashion.
In a nonsense fashion, it felt very similar. Like it had, it felt like it was a deciding point. I needed to tell her. It felt quite serious in my mind. I actually spoke to our 6th grade teacher at the time. 6th grade? Yeah, it must have been. Oh my gosh, it was 6th grade. We were 12. Yeah. And I told her, hey, I think I've been making up the story for many years. Like, I think she believes me. I'm afraid that when she finds out it's not real, she's not going to be my friend anymore, and I'm going to lose my best friend. Because she was, I think, at this point, like probably like my best friend, and like she's who I would talk with all the time. So, and then this teacher was like, oh, I'll talk to her for you. And so she did, which which is maybe not great, right? It's like breaking up with someone, or like maybe not great to have, but this is what happened. And I remember I went home that day thinking like my next day at school would look so different. Like in my mind, I was like, my world has changed. And to mirror all of this, for some context, in the alternate universe, there was actually a war happening. And and so I think where we were with that narrative is that if they lost the war, then I think that the alternates would have to come up. Like they would have to come up ground. Like they'd have to actually meet us. Like we would see them.
Oh, it was really driving towards a decisive point.
I mean, it truly was. So then I come in the next day, and my teacher is like, oh, I told her. And then I meet Lubaba, and Lubaba's like, yeah, I knew all along. Like, what? But it's just so funny. It's one of those things that irony of it didn't quite catch up to me until I was much older, and I was just like, this is great. Like, I told myself the story for years.
Oh my goodness. No, I loved hearing this. And actually something I didn't tell you at the time was when you first told me the story was I had a friend who was like the U equivalent in around 2nd grade. I don't think I told you this. Her name was Lucy, and she would tell me these incredible adventures of her house that had like 100 rooms and all these
No.
adventures, and there'd be a room of this and a room of that. And I have to say, I actually fully believed her. I knew it seemed very you were like second grade, you can just about still be at that place where you know that
Uh-huh.
something it's not that likely to be real, but it you believe the person telling you. And you want to
Yeah.
because it's fun. And she would tell me these great adventures. And I think we just got less close. I think we were probably in different classes after that. Like we were like
Uh,
best friends for maybe a year and then sort of just didn't see each other after that.
yeah.
But I
Yeah.
really treasure that. Like even after I realized she must have made it all up,
Oh,
it was such a
yeah.
delight.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
I'm happy it didn't affect it didn't destroy your friendship with Lubaba. I think it was very smart of her to know. And like think of
Yeah.
how funny that was from her perspective for years. Just like I wonder if she kind of goaded you into it too, of being like, oh, can you take my double a letter? If they lose the war, shall we meet them? Like, do you think she kind of like,
But, I'm of two minds, she and I need to talk about this because I don't know that we actually ever dissected what happened. Um,
oh,
I don't think we ever actually had that conversation.
sure.
Um, but my sense is that given that she knew all along, I think she thought I knew that she knew all along also.
Oh no.
Right? So I think I think she in this entire story, I was the one that was the most naive.
Oh,
In
but
this
it's still so
grand
good.
of ironies.
Yeah, she thought it was like your secret game that you played.
Yes,
And you thought you were the one who thought it was real. That's great.
right. Like, she really believed she thought we were equals. Like, yeah, we both know. Like, of course. Like, this is not.
When you
Ah,
told me that story, I thought, what a fantastic person this must be. And you recently reconnected with her and may get a chance to dissect the story in person because you were going to visit her.
oh my goodness. Vivian, I actually didn't even think of that. Like, I didn't even think of that as something we would do. But we must.
I think you must.
Wow. We
I want
must.
to do more of like if I think of someone in my life and there's always something I wanted to ask them, I think I should just do it. Like you can't wait till you're on your deathbed. There'll be a
No,
really long line of people and you won't
there
have a
will
lot
be.
of energy. You got to do
Oh,
it in
that's true.
life.
Long line, not much
Plus
energy.
and you guys both remember this, right? When you talk to her again, she remembered all of this.
She certainly and if anything, she'll remember different and more details, right? Like, that's just
Yes.
how it is, and, like, I may have like, we'll both be able to patch together something that is gonna be quite fantastic.
I
Oh my
look forward
goodness.
to hearing about it. So you're going to stay with her in London where she is
Yes.
now.
Yes. She's back to London.
Mhm.
Um, so I recently well, Vivian, to meet you and to watch the chess championship in Singapore, which is happening
World
in
Chess
November.
Championship. Yep.
Um, I'm planning to go there, and there's no direct flights from Detroit to Singapore. And for some bizarro reason, like, I just don't want to not take a direct flight. I was trying to explain this to my sister. She and I spoke today, and I'm not really sure why I don't want to take a middle. Like, I think I just don't want to wait in an airport. Like, I think I just want to
Mm,
like go from point A to point B and not wait in an
mm,
airport.
mm.
And I knew that she was in London, and we had briefly talked about seeing each other last year. And in fact, and I think I asked her before you and I went to Norway if she was still like, I wanted to see potentially if I could stop.
Mm.
So we had like very casually kind of talked about it, but then didn't. But more recently, since I realized I was coming to Singapore, all that, um, I mentioned it to her, and I told her yes, Lubaba sometime in November, and I didn't really give her any dates.
Mhm.
And a couple of weeks ago, she messaged me, and I'm really bad at responding to messages. And anyway, she wrote something like, "Hey, are you still thinking of coming in mid-November? Because like I've got people that want to be, I've got people I have to host." She said it with some kind of urgency, which again I didn't know at the time because I wasn't even reading those messages. And then several days later, when I finally, had the courage to just read my messages. So yeah, so she messaged me. She was like, "Okay, Sophia, like you didn't get back to me, so I gave away your dates, but you're still welcome. When are you gonna come here?" Which is great. It's such a like, she's not angry or anything. She's sort of very matter of fact. She went along, did what she had to do. And when I read that, I was like, this is very businesslike. This reminds me a lot of her. This is just how she is. But like, what does she mean by the dates? Like, okay, here. And then she follows this up with, here's a Google Calendar. Reserve the days you're going to come. And here are the rules. Like, read them. Like, this is fantastic, right? It's clear communication. Communication at its best, right?
Yeah.
And so there's like a list of house rules to stay at Lubaba. And I think, I think Lubaba was what she calls it. And I think house guest etiquette is a real thing.
Enormous.
It's an enormous thing. And it is also one of those things that if you're hosting a friend, it can be very tricky to, like, how do you have this conversation, right? Like,
yes.
But I think the way she did it was very classy because it's so up in front. It's funny, and it completely gets the message across.
Let us preview this, and she gave us permission to go over this. Can you read me her house rules, and we'll discuss why they're so excellent and high etiquette.
We shall. I need to blow my nose because I was laughing too much. All right. I also need to pull it up. Lubaba. All right. I'm going to read the whole thing in its entirety.
And shall we interject? Shall we kind of editorialize as we go, or do you want to read all of them at once?
I think. What do you prefer? I think we should.
How long
editorialize?
Is it? Let's. Okay. Shall we? Okay. We'll pause after each one. Yeah. Okay. We'll do them one by one. Chunk.
Okay. We'll do one by one. I'll read the little preamble. Welcome to your holiday retreat. By popular demand, here is a long-awaited booking schedule. Keep me company in my temporary London home. Disclaimer. Accommodation might be free of charge, but it is not free of rules. Come at your own risk. You'll probably be eye-rolled at a few times while here. House rules. Number 1. No throwing up in the house. No cooking that results in excessive smells, unless you can cover it up. That's the first one.
That's all rule number 1?
Yeah.
What a great combination of rules. No throwing up and no cooking. I guess these are smell-related?
Yes. They are smell-related, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're both smell-related. No throwing up, cooking that results in excessive smells unless you can cover it up.
The no throwing up, I love that this is rule number 1 because she really must just absolutely loathe it. And I hope has not had guests in the past who threw up excessively. Like, I can't think of why you'd have that unless you were doing a lot of drinking in your house.
This is what I'm thinking.
Uh-huh.
This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking potentially it's throwing up that has to do with drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does she host wild drinking?
I don't know, but she says holiday retreat. It seems like there's like a lot of people coming. Like I really don't know, and I also don't know what her friends are like anymore because
Yeah, and sometimes maybe people visit her and they hit the London pubs a little hard.
Oh, you're right. There's pubs in London.
Pubs in London, just in time to return to her lovely place and grow up in it. I have to say, this is making me think of like the last major shindig of close friends that I hosted. This is kind of sad, okay, because I hosted people after that in grad school, but the last time I had like friends over, I would say was my first place after college.
Yeah.
I worked in my college town, and a bunch of my friends, closest friends from college came to I think they came to visit. It wasn't just the moving me in time.
Yeah.
But I remember, this is such like an early 20s thing only that one could do. We had like a roaring great time. We were like playing like beer pong or something. We were singing Les Miserables at the top of our lungs for some reason, which I thought my landlady would be upset by, but I think she slept through, fortunately, because we were raucous. And it ended with at least one friend throwing up quite a lot. But at the time, in one's 20s, it feels like now you've really broken into the space. As long as you can clean it up, it's fine. And it feels like now we've really settled. This is such an early 20s thing, which Lubaba, we are no longer in our early 20s. This is not a welcome feature. It's weird how acceptable that was early on. But I can see how like just actually saying no throwing up covers a lot of bases, right? Like you're not gonna get crazy drunk. I mean, do you think she would probably, if someone just happened to be extremely food poisoned and had to throw up in her place, or do you think she would really want this person to go throw up somewhere else?
I'm thinking this has more to do with the drinking because for some reason when I saw this, like I didn't think about illness or like because she's not, she's not unreasonable as a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of putting it this way is maybe a nice way of saying, like, please don't get so
So drunk,
sloshed,
right?
so
Yeah.
drunk that you
Yeah,
then
yeah,
trash my place and expect
yeah.
me to clean up and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. Without having to
Oh,
make a no drinking rule or something, right? Because, she's fine with
mm,
drinking maybe, but she just doesn't want hooliganism. Place.
yes.
Rule number
Hooligan is
1.
great. The other thing I can think of is, and maybe this is a matter of like needing to be slightly more precise with language, but it's
Mm.
possible if you were to throw up into a bag or something and not throw up on a
Mm.
surface. But
Oh,
again, if it's
yeah.
that bad, you don't maybe necessarily are able to control it.
Maybe. But okay, it's also maybe this is open to, but if one must throw up, do it in a way that is so she wouldn't even notice, right? Like it's not like if
Mm,
right, she doesn't want obvious throw up. She doesn't want obvious smells,
yes,
which
because
seems like such a basic thing, and yet people do terrible things when they're house guests. Terrible things.
right. Oh, and as you're speaking, Vivian, I realize her punctuation, I think
Hmm.
her punctuation supports what you're saying because she says no throwing up in the house, comma, no cooking that results in excessive smells, and then a
Hmm.
bracket unless you can cover it up,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
think implies, which is both first point
Hmm.
and the second point, right? Like if
Hmm.
you can cover it up.
Yeah. You know what I like about this too? This is a version of people saying, please keep my apartment clean as a
Hmm.
guest,
Hmm.
right? Which
Hmm.
everyone says everyone wants, but people just do whatever they want. Or people
Yeah.
can really be like, oh, clean enough. And to
Yeah.
really be specific about what she does not want, what kind of filth and
Yeah.
mess she does not want is a
Yeah.
great thing. Moment of truth time. Have you ever stayed with someone and either had to throw up or leave a strong smell in their place?
Yes.
Oh,
Not the throw up part, because as you might remember, I don't throw up. Um,
you don't throw up?
I yeah, we've talked about this. I can't throw up. My esophagus is too small.
Oh, what?
Oh, actually, this is probably something I should tell people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, because it's dangerous, right? If I swallow, like, yeah, yeah, I have this like a tinier esophagus than normal, and I think my parents discovered it because, like, yeah, like at first it was like kind of hard for me to eat when I was younger, or like swallow
Oh.
stuff. But then essentially, I just wasn't able to throw up. Like, I'd be really, really nauseous and wouldn't come out.
You're like a rabbit. Rabbits can't throw up. Their
You can't
system
throw
only
up.
goes one way. They can't
This
throw
is
up.
why
It's
we're
also dangerous.
friends.
Yeah, I guess. I'm like, I can live with someone who can't throw up. Well, make sure you get special care.
Oh, yeah, yeah, no, I should probably, I'm glad you know this. I should probably tell this to people. Yeah, I can't throw up.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So yes, one time, my family and we were staying with like a family friend,
Uh-huh.
and I had like diarrhea, so I had to
Mhm.
cause smells in the
Mhm.
bathroom.
Mhm. It happens.
That was the time.
Mm.
What about you?
I think this is one of my fears, I guess, of like staying at someone's place and like, messing up their place. But of course, especially like a
Mm,
smell or a bodily smell is pretty
yeah,
serious.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Let me think. Like, I don't have like a glorious story about it, I guess. I had to throw up at a friend's place. I was over for like Friendsgiving and I
Ah,
was having very bad migraines at the time. And I drove over to
oh
their
no.
place and it was like in the
Yeah,
middle of COVID. So I think what
yeah.
happened was I was already a little not feeling so good. And then
Hmm.
we had decided we'd all agreed to do, I think, like masks and face shields.
Ah,
Like
okay,
this was
yeah,
like very high COVID and they were taking a little like
okay,
it was legal, whatever. It was okay to meet, but people were trying to
yeah.
be as careful as
Got it.
possible. So we
Yeah,
agreed to like sit in the garage and like
yeah,
wear face shields. And I
yeah.
drove over wearing my face shield. And I think there was like some slight reflection coming off the face shield, which to a
Uh
normal
huh.
person is no big deal, but to somebody who's like suffering from migraines at the time, I think it just set me
Ah.
off.
Oh, I'm
And
so
I got to
sorry.
their place very nauseated. Uh and like tried really hard to keep it together, like ate some food, like and
Yeah.
was clearly unwell. And they were being so sweet. They were like, if you're not feeling well, you can like take off the face shield. Like I think it was at some point I was
Yeah.
realizing that was causing it. And at some point I had to
Yeah.
like secretly go and throw up in their bathroom, which they still don't know about, I hope,
Oh.
unless they ever listened.
Oh. Yeah. Oh.
And I managed to get home afterwards and
Yeah.
stuff. Luckily they lived very close. But I really appreciate Lubaba for putting this as a rule because, of course, it's a thing, it's very fair to not want this in your house. And you want the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
guest who would try their very, very best not to
yeah, yeah.
mess up your living environment with strong smells.
I also think I'm glad she has this in her rules, specifically because given the awkwardness of mentioning the fact that bad smells can happen, you can
Mhm.
already start talking about it, right? So, like, for example, what
Mm.
I loved about traveling with you
Mhm.
was that very early on, I was able to tell you that I was self-conscious about, like, you know, pooping and the smell or whatever, and
Mhm.
you were so kind. You gave me, like,
Bathrooms.
pooping time, you'd, like, leave the room or it was
Yeah.
one of the loveliest things.
I think you did the same for me, and I think it's right that you need to be really comfortable with somebody, but it
Mhm.
helps if someone raises it first. I feel like if
Yeah.
I ever stayed with Lubaba, whom I don't even know, and we had to have some frank, unpleasant, unfortunate discussion about some kind of smell, her listing it
Mhm.
as rule 1 is it's like, "I don't want this into my house, but if we have to talk about it, let's go."
We've
Right?
already broken the ice, yes. We know this exists, this is a possibility,
Yeah.
not one that I want, which is why
Yeah.
we're talking about it, but
Mhm.
yeah. Oh,
But
that's good.
there's this oddly great willingness to put it up front
Correct.
that
I
is
agree. I like
excellent.
this. Excellent. Good stuff. Good,
Fantastic.
good, good.
All right, let's
Continue.
rule number 2.
Good rule. Yeah. Rule
Good
number
rule.
2, clean up after yourself. Also, I like my items in their exact spots. There is a reason for why things are where they are.
Brilliant. I think most people feel this way,
Uh-huh.
and you should certainly get to insist upon this in your own house. And your guests
Yeah.
who are staying with you for a while should not get to feel that they know better than you where you want your items placed.
Yeah. 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 And I would have thought that this was common sense, but I have a friend who was describing to me a relative of hers that came over and would
Mhm.
just like take things and place them in random spots around the plate,
Mhm.
like house. Like she'd find a hairdryer here, and it would drive her insane.
Yeah.
And she was very confused because she didn't think that this was acceptable behavior.
Yeah, or that you would have to spell it out. But I really like
Yes,
that
you would have to
Lubaba
spell it out.
what she's also done is she's given the rule and she's given the rationale. There's a reason
Mm.
why things are where they are, which is of course true, but some people either they skip over thinking that or they think they know better, right?
Yeah.
And this is her gently saying, "I want my things where they are for this reason."
Mm.
Great.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
explaining it clearly,
So
objectively.
the thing about Lubaba, which I really love, is
Mhm.
that, her reasons are probably fantastic. Like, they're probably funny. She would probably have very detailed and, like,
Oh.
quite specific reasons that are good for why a thing is there.
Mhm.
It would be multifactorial, you know?
Yeah.
And you would be like, "Wow, all of this thought went to this one," and you would
Mm.
marvel at it. So,
Mm.
there's a part of me that kind of just wants to not misplace anything, but maybe just even ask, like, "Oh, so this is here. Tell me why. I know there's a
Mm.
reason, but why? I'm not gonna move it, but I wanna
Yeah.
know why."
Yeah. That's good. That's really good. It's the combined I feel like just from what I've read about setting rules with children or in classroom environments or something,
Mm,
that being like spelling out why something is done and leaving it to people to respect that and within their own agency is kind of the right way to
yeah,
go.
yeah.
So, very good. And you're right, that's a great conversation. It would be fun to go to her
Very
house and be like, "Why is this here?" In a way to tell me.
you would
And
enjoy her. You would enjoy her house, you would enjoy her. I hope the 2 of you
seems
meet,
great.
actually.
Yeah, she seems great. This is great. All right, rule number
Shall
3.
I do number 3?
There's 7, yeah.
The 7th. 3. Don't finish all my bottled water without buying some to later restock. I will remind you.
What a specific rule that I feel sorry for her that this has clearly happened and that's why there's a rule. It's
Yeah.
very it's extra good of her to say, "I will remind you too."
Yeah.
But also, yeah, don't go to someone's house and finish all of their stuff.
Yeah, but it's what I find genius about this is that water
Mhm.
is one of those things that people can somehow put it past, Diet Coke, for example. I don't think somebody would finish Diet Coke and not think to restock it. But there's something about water in specific,
Yes.
right?
It's
That
it's
elides
almost like this
that.
is
Yeah.
Sorry, this is such a basic that it surely won't affect you if I finish all your water.
Yes.
When of course that's not
Yeah.
true.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, clearly this must have happened to her.
Must have happened. Someone finished all her water.
Yeah.
What do you think? And this is actually how much of your stuff is on offer to someone who's staying with you is a very
Mm.
careful negotiation, right? This one's kind of tricky. I think water is such a good example, right? Because it feels like you can just help yourself to water. As someone
Right.
who I think who would cautiously help myself to a host's things, especially if they had not offered them. It does
Mhm.
seem reasonable that you would drink some water without barely asking. You would just go ahead and do it.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but also, you know, she needs water. Don't drink all her water. Um,
I
yeah.
think it's a good question that you asked about the food thing.
Yeah.
Um,
How much of someone's stuff are you helping yourself to when you're at their place?
I mean, probably nothing without asking them. Like, for me
Yeah.
at least, I would ask.
Yeah.
Um, on the other side, if someone were to come over, this is just, for you to know,
Hmm.
you could eat whatever. Like, I just wouldn't. Yeah,
Thank you.
you could finish the entire pantry. You would be fine.
But you and I are very good friends and have
No, but
kind of
even if
like
it
a
was
lot of
someone like,
even with someone just staying with you, really?
yeah.
Mm.
It's like a hospitality rule that I grew up with. So
Mm.
it's one of those, like, this will not change.
Mm.
Um,
That's good.
However, I would make an exception for the water, simply because I really like sparkling water.
Uh-huh.
And food, whatever, there's food. But water, sparkling water, is not as easy to replace.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
'Cause it's heavy.
well, also, yeah, but and that's also like, right, like somebody's not gonna eat your entire pantry, right? But they can finish all your water.
Okay,
Like,
okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. You could realistically completely clean someone out of this, and you don't have a simple substitute for like if someone
there's
ate
not.
all your
Yeah.
bread, you would eat something else, but if someone drank all your
Yeah,
sparkling water when you
correct.
wanted sparkling water,
There's no other substitute.
that would be upsetting.
Yeah.
Um, I have a funny slash disgusting story about helping myself to
I wanna
somebody's
hear
stuff
this.
at their
I would like to
place.
hear this. Tell me,
And
tell
this
me.
was many years ago. I don't think
Mhm.
this friend will ever hear this podcast. So this was a very close friend of mine,
Mhm.
and I went to go stay with her and her boyfriend at the time.
Mhm.
I didn't really like this boyfriend.
Aw.
And I
Yeah.
probably was not very I don't think I hid that very well. But
Uh-huh,
anyway,
uh-huh,
so I
uh-huh.
went to go stay with this friend and her boyfriend, and I woke up earlier. So this is a thing for me for people when I stay with people. Um, I'm an earlier riser than I was back then, but I think
Mhm.
even back then I woke up at a morning time and she was sleeping in. And I think her boyfriend
Uh,
left for work or something. Like
yeah, yeah.
there was this pretty long period of time where I was awake and I needed to eat some breakfast and drink some coffee because I must have
Mhm.
coffee. And I have
Yeah.
brought my own coffee before to places like I had a
Mhm.
friend whose parents really didn't drink coffee. They don't mind if someone else does, but they just did not drink
Uh-huh,
any coffee or caffeine. And
uh-huh,
so I would just bring
uh,
my own and quite cheerfully, and I would have it and they would have their other stuff. It was fine. But I was
uh-huh,
like, sure,
uh-huh.
I'll bring my own coffee if I need to. But I
Yeah.
must have some
Yeah.
morning coffee. So I'm at their
Mhm.
place. I need to eat something so I have something to put in the stomach before the coffee
Yeah.
goes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not wanting to help myself to too much of their stuff, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
clean them out. I don't really. But I'm like, I'm sure
Yeah.
I can eat some of your food. We're very good friends. And
Uh-huh.
I look for the thing that I can most eat without depleting it, and there's a
Right.
huge jar of peanut butter in the fridge. And I go,
Oh,
"Okay, this
wow.
is fine."
Enjoying where the story's going already. Uh-huh.
You can eat any amount of peanut butter and,
There's a lot,
you know,
yeah. Yeah.
so replaceable, not expensive.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
end up eating something with the peanut butter.
Uh-huh.
And eventually my friend wakes up.
Uh-huh.
We'll call her boyfriend John. And I go, I had some peanut butter. And she was very enraptured with John at the time. Every
Yeah.
sentence out of her mouth was John. And she goes like,
Oh.
"Oh, peanut butter. John loves peanut butter." And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"Okay." And she goes,
Yeah.
"He loves it so much he eats it out of the jar."
Oh.
And that was my punishment for eating their peanut butter without
Oh.
asking.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I didn't see the story going there, but okay.
That's where that story went.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so funny. This boyfriend that you didn't like,
Did
you
not
ended
like.
up
Yeah.
exchanging his
Yeah.
this is too funny. Too good. I mean, I'm
Yep.
sorry that you had to experience this.
That's okay. That's okay. As a host, I will never leave out a jar of peanut butter if I've eaten out of it and just leave it in the fridge where an unsuspecting guest who doesn't like me could get some of it.
I wouldn't have the foresight to not leave it out. I would just keep it there. Not
Mm,
for any reason outside of it, just wouldn't occur to me to remember
yeah.
to
Yeah.
do that.
Same. Well, anyway, well, but for them, so.
My goodness.
But it was
So
kind of them
funny.
to host me. I mean, you're always, as a
Yeah.
guest, you should always, I mean, I think you should always remember if someone is extending you hospitality, and that's a very
Yeah.
kind thing.
Yeah.
That's my
You
that's
know,
my story.
the thing that you said about waking up slightly earlier, um, this is the thing that I've always really enjoyed about, like, hosting. I think one of my dreams is, like, I'll have to host someone, and I'll be the best host they've ever had, and I'll give them the best breakfast they've ever had. This is a weird little fantasy of mine that, like,
Huh.
they wake up and they get this, like it's like the bed and breakfast,
Yeah.
but the S tier version of it, like, they would get I would wake up magically before they did. And there would be the whatever drink they drink, the best of it, you know?
Oh.
Um, something freshly baked piping from the oven. They're like,
Yeah.
"How is this possible? It's 7
Yeah.
AM." But yes, anyway, that's a fantasy.
It's
One
great.
day.
So I think something fun about hosting and interesting it just people have such strong individual preferences
Mm.
about how much they want to host and what they expect from hosting. And it's all well and good, but I think there's often a lot of mismatches that are not communicated properly, which is what Lubaba's rules are helping with.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think on my sort of like fantasy hosting level, I wouldn't
Uh-huh,
mind maybe for like a good friend doing a little bit of that, but I think
uh-huh,
my ideal is sort of like I think I we've had this conversation. I like ordinary life quite a lot. Like I feel kind of
uh-huh,
uncomfortable when people bring out slightly better than their average life
uh-huh,
for me. Like we're eating on
uh-huh,
slightly nicer dishes or something. Like a
uh-huh,
bit of it
uh-huh,
is nice, and a bit of it
uh-huh.
makes me feel a little like I'm inconveniencing you, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just want things as they are normally for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
the best in my hosting philosophy, which is a
Uh-huh,
whole topic we can get to, I think the times I've enjoyed myself the most as a host is when I've put
uh-huh,
out basically what I would do for myself and felt comfortable knowing that my guests are at the same level of comfort and we're all
mhm.
enjoying ourselves at about
Mm.
the level of my life.
Yeah,
Slightly nicer, but
yeah.
not too much nicer. I think those are like the hosting times I've enjoyed the most.
I think that's very reasonable because you can sense when a person is trying to work like, there's that frenetic energy that happens, right, when
Mm.
someone's trying to host,
Yeah.
and you don't
Yeah, I
want that
really
the
like
first
I
thing in the
don't like
morning.
that. Mhm.
You want just to yeah. I think the thing is that my daily life is quite like this, right? Like, I'll wake up and bake fresh muffins. I'll wake up and like,
Yeah.
this is just
You'll
me.
make yourself a
So,
single cookie. You'll
I'll make
take out a
myself a
frozen cookie
single
ball.
there you go.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, for
So
me,
this
that
is
would
your
be my
average level.
this would be
Yeah.
my average level, but
Yeah.
it would be great.
Mhm. It would be great. It would be great. But that's what you want to give, and that's good. And I think
Correct.
what Lubaba wants to give is Lubaba's level, is we'll learn from the next rules, and I think it's also
Yeah.
great.
I think it's great. It's absolutely great. Um, shall I
Yeah,
shall I,
please.
okay. I have an extra bedroom, so that's where you will be sleeping. There's also a sofa, so 3 guests can come at a time. Technically, there's also my room, but I will most likely not want to share. I wake up at 5:30 AM, and I sleep to the sound of Dr. Katz. I want to keep that routine going. Close friends can renegotiate.
What are Dr. Katz?
I do not know, but I must look it up right now because every time I've read this, I have thought about this. Dr. Katz is spelled Katv.
Oh, KATZ? This sounds familiar. This sounds like
Oh my gosh,
some
it's
kind
a
of radio show.
sitcom! Dr. Katz, professional therapist. There's 6 seasons of it. A divorced psychologist tries to help his patients, some of them famous, cope with their life traumas while sharing his home with an aimless adult son, Ben, who only lives to make passes at Dr. Katz's sarcastic receptionist, Laura.
Fantastic.
I wanna watch this.
Yeah. No, this sounds great. That's what she falls asleep to. She wakes up at 5:30 AM. She
She
has
wants to
this
keep that
routine. She
routine
does
going.
not want to give up her bedroom to a guest. Close friends
Mhm,
can renegotiate certain aspects, but that
mhm,
sounds good.
mhm.
I want you to have your normal bedtime routine when I'm
Yes.
staying with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like this. I love that I know what she sleeps to the sound of. This feels very
Mhm.
intimate.
Mhm. Yeah. She must be up at 5:30 a.m. This just says a lot. It's like, okay, I'm not going to keep you
What
up
did she
very
do at
late.
5:30 a.m.? Like, I don't remember this about her. I mean,
That is
obviously we're
quite.
children. We know each other.
When you
But
stay with her, I want to know what she does at waking up at 5:30 a.m.
I need to understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, I need to understand. I'll figure. I'll find out.
very good.
Um, okay. So the fifth rule:
Hmm.
no staying for over a week. I need a break from having people around, and this needs to be fun for me too. I feel like a week is quite generous.
A week is generous. How long about a week is I feel like it's generous but doable. Like if it's awful, a week will pass.
Yeah,
If it's
yeah.
great, a week will also pass, and it will pass happily, and you have about enough time with somebody in a week that no matter what
Mm.
you're doing in your life, you're catching them a good amount. But
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no staying for over a week. Well, it's good, right, that she specified the time, like the amount of time.
exactly.
Like
The exact
that's
and not
really
the exact amount of time, right? Not don't stay
yeah.
too long,
Right.
a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. Um, yeah. But I think she also did something quite skillful with the I need this needs to be fun for me too. Because what it implies is that when you're there for the week, she's having fun the whole time. And
Yeah,
so that
she's having
you
fun
don't
with you. You're not imposing. She's not
because
unhappy to
she's
host
having
you.
fun. Yes.
She's having fun.
Yeah. So I
So
think that's also
graciously put.
so
Yeah,
gracious. Yeah.
outstanding.
So then the next one is is there anything else you wanted to add
I
about
think
that
that's
one?
right. It's such a well put rule that we're like, yep, sounds great.
The one after that one is no smoking, and then in parentheses, obviously. Well,
Great.
I would have lumped it under the no smells.
Me too, but I do wonder if she has had guests in the past who felt that smoking was an exception because they smoke. Like it's part of
Um,
it's one of their
yeah,
actions. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah,
would be like it would almost be an exception because they
yeah,
have to. Um,
yeah,
but also I do think smoking is things that it's a slight inconvenience to you, but you can do it elsewhere if your host doesn't want you smoking on their premises.
yeah, yeah. You could
But
do
it
it
also
elsewhere.
feels well stated enough that it's very clear. It's just that's the rule. It's by itself. You can't claim to have missed it.
Yes, that's actually a good point. It is not lumped in with anything else. Like I would have
Mm-hmm.
put it in with the smells thing, but yeah,
Nope.
this really punctuates no smoking. That's it. But also
Yeah.
the
And
shortest rule of all of them. It's just 3 words.
the shortest, but she took the time to add parentheses, obviously, which I really like because to me it's not. I mean, I don't know her. Maybe like her whole thing is no smoking, but
Uh-huh.
I like the obviously because it's a little bit of a chastising move in her very humorous rules, but just like it's the
Yeah.
equivalent of being like, no smoking, and I mean this,
Yeah. Like
as
no
though
sane
as
person
though we're
would do
not.
this.
Yeah, but I mean, you can imagine the kind of person who would be like, but it's just a little or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I'm
Yeah.
just, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
preempts that with just obviously.
So
And
the
do we have
next
one
one.
more rule? Is that it? How many
We
more
have
we
two
got?
more.
Two
Two
more.
more.
Beautiful.
Yeah, two more. Penultimate one is no bringing along people without letting me know who they are first. Not all guests are made equal.
Amazing. Feels so
Pretty.
true and so obvious, and yet it must happen all the time. Has it happened to you where someone has come to stay with you and brought someone else?
No.
Same, but I would be so horrified if someone tried to do that.
I
Something must
mean,
have happened to her or someone she knows where like
yeah,
someone
yeah,
sneakily brought someone along at the last minute.
yeah,
And
yeah.
usually, I think what's great about this rule is like I feel like someone is bringing a guest along. Either they didn't plan for it, this person came at the last minute, or they're a little bit hesitant to tell you until it happens because they already have this
Um,
feeling that you would say no.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
I'm wondering if also, like we both grew up in Saudi Arabia,
Hmm.
and I can see this as being something like culturally that would happen more in Saudi Arabia, like
Mm.
or like someone who grew up there, they would think it
Mm.
was more acceptable to sort of just bring someone along.
Yeah, bring one more
Like
person.
they just wouldn't think twice
Yeah.
about it really.
Would you let your host know in advance?
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I would
Mm.
never like Yeah, because like if you're coming, you're not coming like if you're gonna come with someone else, then the ask should be for both of them, right? For simple
Mhm.
reasons like where will the other person sleep? Like
Yes.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't not talk about that. Like that's sort
Yeah.
of
Like, you can't just show up and expect your host to accommodate,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Right.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I found that not all guests are made equal part to be interesting though.
Oh, yeah, that was great. Okay. You go first. What do you think she means by that? I think we know what she means, but I wanna unpack it a little. Not all guests are made
Uh,
equal.
I mean, it's very obvious, right? I might like you, but no guarantees I will like anyone else that you are involved with or are
Yeah.
bringing along.
Or bringing along for whatever reason. You I know,
Yeah. You I
and other
know.
people don't know, don't want them in my house necessarily,
Yeah, yeah,
even if
yeah,
you like them or something.
yeah.
Totally valid. And it's kinder to say not all guests are equal rather than
Mhm.
not all people, just in the sense of like people's guest behavior does vary greatly.
This
And
is true.
it's a backhanded compliment of the people she is letting stay over, right? Like if I'm giving you my rules, I am putting you in the selection of people, of guests I'm happy to host, and I'm
Uh-huh.
letting you know that it does not apply to everybody. So this is a
Mhm,
privilege that I want you to use
mhm.
wisely when you are in my
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, that's similar to the what she did with the earlier thing about the, no staying for over a week because I want this to
Mhm.
be fun for me too. Because it's similar sort of compliment where you're like, "Oh, you're gonna enjoy yourself thoroughly." Like, or at least,
Yeah.
you will be enjoying yourself for the week.
Yeah, and I will enjoy
Yeah.
your company for a week.
Yeah, for a week.
Um,
And then the final one, unless there was
yeah.
more.
Nope, go ahead. Last rule.
No expectations of making plans and visiting attractions together. I am here on a mission and I have a schedule. I would love to hang out at home after, but this is more of a roommate bonding over late night talks kind of situation. You need a hanging out buddy, get a friend along. The room fits too.
Okay, so there's so many parts of this that are good. Let's start from the beginning. No expectations of doing tourist things, right? So she lives in London all the time,
Hmm. Hmm.
has been on the London Eye or whatever, like all the has seen Big Ben, has been to Madame Tussauds or doesn't care to go, right? Like she has done all those
Yeah.
things. And so
Uh-huh.
she's being very clear and specific and saying, for you, it's a fun visit. For me,
Yeah.
I am on a mission. I love that phrase.
I'm here on a mission and I have a schedule.
And it just makes it so clear that, what I'm offering to you for hosting you is a place to stay at night, a
Hmm.
guest
Hmm.
room and so on. And this is how much I'm able to commit to hanging out with you, which we agree upon in advance. So come expecting
Hmm.
this. I love the offer to kind of how does she put it with like the late night hanging out?
This is more of a roommate bonding over late nights talks kind of situation.
Hmm. That's lovely. She's saying what
Yeah.
she wants from hosting you, which is
Yeah.
hopefully you'll be around to talk late at night with me since you've come to stay
Yeah.
with me. Hope this sounds
Yeah.
good to you too. And don't
Yeah.
expect to be able to drag me out to sightseeing because I have a schedule and a mission.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have a life that will not just upend itself because you are here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And she can grant this on a case by case basis to specific guests, right?
Yes,
If
yes,
desired.
yes, yes,
But just sort of setting this as a baseline,
yes.
feels very fair and good. And
It
then
does feel very fair
the
indeed.
like the last thing I like about it is when she says like the guest room like fits two or something, is that connects
Yeah.
to the previous rule of like sure, which is splendidly general. You can bring someone with this. I think she says
Yeah.
that she hosts up to three. Two
Yeah.
in this room, one on the couch, but let me
Yeah.
know who they are ahead of time, and they
Yep.
can't smoke on my premises, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh my goodness. Vivian, if you were available, it would have been great. I would have asked her, "Hey, Lubaba, can Vivian come along?"
Oh,
And then we
that would
could
have been
have
fun.
oh, that would have been fun.
We would have been good, yeah.
It would have been great.
Um, so as we're wrapping this up, I think when you first started telling me about these rules, I was so excited because I mean, first they're great rules. They're full of personality.
Uh-huh,
They cover all the bases, but in a
uh-huh,
humorous, witty, fun way.
uh-huh.
I have just never encountered someone who had such upfront great rules about staying at their place. Like, now that I think about it, it's been a really long time since I did some kind of Airbnb, but I think sometimes those come with something like this, but not written in
Yeah.
such a friendly, winsome way because they're not
Yeah.
you're kind
Yeah.
of you're
Well,
paying
yeah.
customers.
Yeah.
But this just seems ideal. Like, of the times I've hosted friends, I might have said some version of some of the rules I
Yeah.
had, but kind of maybe apologetically, or
Yeah.
I think what I'm realizing is, and this is what's a problem, I would be more upfront with close friends about my real rules. I would be
Mm.
less upfront with less close friends whom you are
Uh-huh.
more likely to have clashes with because you haven't communicated
Right.
so well. Because
This is
I
true.
I think I just feel like I can be more honest with closer
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But this should apply to everybody you allow to stay with you.
Yeah. You know, this is making me like remember like one of my favorite things about her was I remember like not ever feeling like I had to do much emotional like work. Like it was always very clear. Like the
Mhm,
communication was always very good.
mhm.
There's no yeah, there's a way in which like trying to be polite can make things quite bad.
Yeah,
And
because you're
yeah.
guessing a little, you're feeling your way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what she's doing with these rules is it's not that they're impolite, they are just I don't know, they're direct, they're clear, they're welcoming,
Very welcoming.
very welcoming. It's quite an amazing balance that she has struck here.
Yeah. Baba, I think we're very impressed if you were
We're
listening to
very
this.
impressed. We're very, very impressed. Yeah. I think in the future, if I were to host somebody, I would almost, and I want to, I think what's great about her, she just has this list and she sends it to all the guests. And
Yeah.
it's so clearly, this is my list for all the guests. I don't know
Yeah.
if I would
Yeah.
feel a bit bad, unnecessarily sending it to like, if it's just your rules, like your house, your rules, this is everybody. You should, and there's no reason to feel bad about having your boundaries and your preferences
But
in
did I
your
tell you
house
she didn't
whatsoever.
send these to me?
Wasn't it just like in her Google Calendar invite or something, or like in
Yeah, so it's part of
her
the
whole booking
invite.
system?
Yes, it's part of the whole booking system. You don't e she never even has to send this to you. You need to book the specific dates.
Hmm. You book them
Yeah.
on her calendar, and what I
Uh-huh.
really love too is you told me that her her calendar gets booked up fast, not only because of guests, but as soon as she has guests, she just books out a couple more weeks around it so she has alone time, right? She
Yep.
really
Yep.
knows
Yeah, yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what she wants
Yes.
and is comfortable
Uh-huh.
offering and offers
Yes.
that graciously and
Yes.
willingly. Probably
Yes.
has, I hope, great times in the Lubaba B&B
Yes. Yes.
with the people she wants to
Airbnb.
have over.
Yeah. Mhm.
Seems great. Are there more areas of our lives to which we could apply something like this?
In which clear rules would be helpful?
Yeah, and I mean, it's okay. I do get it's a little bit of an invest. It fits the investment, right? If I'm going to host you for up to a week, I want you to
Yeah.
learn these rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to send these to somebody before every interaction with them.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like your question. Basically, if I'm understanding, is it can there be can we have rules that specify how some sort of interaction should go in other realms, like outside of
Yeah. Like, are there other
yeah.
maybe
Mhm.
of a similar size, right? Not every coffee date do you have to do this ahead of time, but maybe are there other similarly large areas of life where you're committing to somebody and you want to set expectations for how it's going to go because it's a little bit of I think traveling together with friends, very similar, right? Like you're going to spend a lot of time
Yeah.
together, you need to sort of establish where you want things to
Yes.
be.
Yes, yes,
Maybe it's
yes.
just for larger things like this, like planning a wedding with friends or something. How much is everybody gonna?
I think that I can think of one other
Mm.
instance.
Yeah.
And it's probably when you're starting to work with someone new, or even if
Mm.
you're already working with someone at an office, I would imagine these are actually quite helpful. So, like, you know,
Mm.
this is how I communicate, right? Like, if
Yeah.
I send an email, like, don't read too much into this, or like, if I'm upset, this is how I'll do it,
Mm.
or like, some
Yeah.
sort of like,
Yeah.
as though you're the B&B, right? Like, the experience of
Yeah.
you as the B&B.
Yeah. It's striking that we don't do that.
Right? That we don't actually, you're right. We don't do that.
Yeah, this is making me realize, I had a friend who went to NYU, and first year you just get thrown together with a roommate. And
Yeah,
what they had them do was they had them, I think ahead of time you fill out like a roommate preference kind of survey, which is pretty
yeah,
common.
yeah.
You put down, what you're like and what you hope for the roommate. They
Right, right,
try to
right, right.
match you up as best as you can, but they had
Yeah.
people make a roommate contract when they
Mhm.
moved in together of saying like, this
Yeah.
is how we'll do this and this and this, and if it falls through, this is what we'll do, and this and this and this.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
And it was so sensible. And you're right
yeah.
that if you're about to work with somebody frequently, it makes a lot of sense to clear the air ahead of time rather than find out along the way, which is usually what happens, right?
Which is
Or
usually what
like
happens, yeah.
you I think we just sort of proceed until there's a problem and then you try to get over
And
it.
then
But
you
so
learn,
much of
yeah.
that could be, yeah, why not give somebody a little like one pager of like, this is what I'm like over email. This is
I wonder, like, I wonder if so I think part of, like, a roommate agreement, for example, like, there's negotiation, right? Like, I wonder if part of coming up with a set of,
Mm,
expectations, like, should also include some sort of negotiation phase, like,
yeah.
"This is what it's for me, and what are the things for you?" And
Hmm.
then are there areas where we might need
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the roommate contract kind of works that way. I like that Lubaba does not open her Airbnb rules up for negotiation because I think she's
Oh,
in the
she does.
position where she does she? Oh yeah, she has a few things, right? Like close friends may renegotiate.
No, no, no. So there's a final paragraph here where she
Oh,
says, "That being said, come visit. I will be slightly anxious you're coming to visit, but very excited once you're actually here. All rules are up for negotiation before arrival if you have the energy to go into a debate."
I love that. That's perfect. Okay, that's really generous of hers. I'm not sure if I would, and maybe that's me, right? Maybe I'm like, actually, my rules are fully non-negotiable, and I'll let you know ahead of time. And she's letting people know like some of it is a little, which is great, right? That this tells me if I had to throw up in her house, that would be she would not throw me out of the house, right? Like
Not.
there's some we're friends. I'm gonna be excited. I'm a little. I love that she put. I'm anxious till you get here, and then when you come here, I'll be excited. Is that something you've
Yeah.
recognized in me, which I was not that aware of.
Mm.
Um,
Wait,
so
did I
that's up for
recognize in you?
negotiation. Yeah.
I did?
Yeah,
When?
yeah. I was really nervous about an event I was doing, and I was really dreading it. And you
Oh,
said
oh.
something like, I think you're just kind of anxious, and I think when it starts, you'll be great and you'll be happy. And that was
Oh.
exactly how it went down.
Oh.
I was dreading it a lot, and I didn't realize how much of it was just anxiety. And the anxiety
Dread of a
of
thing, yeah.
yeah, that Lubaba was referring to is a little bit of it's like nervous excitement energy, right? Like this person's
Mhm.
coming to stay with you. You have been good friends. They've never been your guest before. What's it going to be like? How are they different now from the last time you saw each other? These are all in the air.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so maybe that's it. You begin by clearly explaining the way you are and your
Yeah.
current
The way you are.
preferences.
Yes.
You, if appropriate, open it to negotiation. I like that she also kind of the way she put it, like, if you have the energy for a debate is like,
Mhm.
you know, I'm not opening a negotiation where I'm gonna drop all my rules because you
Easily.
say
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna push back a little. I have my reasons for why things are where they
Yeah.
are. If you have a great reason, I am open to budging. But
Yeah, but also you'd have to be ready for it because probably it's
yes,
so well thought out that you
yeah.
need to have some energy.
It's like I love this like combination of welcome and slight intimidation of just like I am not going to be pushed around by you just because I am opening my house to you.
Which is the best combination because typically the
It's the
kind
best.
of person that does that it doesn't come with that combination of welcoming, right?
Yes.
Like, that kind of
Yes.
person doesn't bring you in.
Yeah. Just does not begin with bringing you in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great.
This is
This is
really,
okay.
really
Back to the point when you're talking about people to work with. This is just a conversation I had with some friends last week that was fully unrelated, but I loved it as a topic, and I loved that me not knowing them very well. This was an insight I was getting of them. But just out
Mhm.
of nowhere, somebody went like, "What is your fighting style?" As
Oh,
when you get
uh-huh.
into an argument with somebody, and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we were talking more about like significant others, but we talked about family, we talked about friends,
yeah,
and I think we focused on significant others because there was a general consensus in that group that we felt most comfortable fighting with significant other type people because both you're sort of equal and you're sort
yeah.
of what this other person does affects you more than anything else, like in a friendship,
Yeah.
right? Like it is a
Right.
close relationship, so it is the one you should feel the most yourself to argue in. So that was why we did that, but we did kind of touch on all of them. And we just sort
Uh-huh.
of went around and explained our fighting styles with great grace
Uh-huh.
and humor. And
Uh-huh.
it was funny. Like one person was saying, this was great. We went like, all right, what do you do when you fight with your boyfriend? And she goes,
Uh-huh.
I get up and I start walking very fast.
Oh, like,
And we were like,
yeah.
okay, do you ever fight at home? And she was like, no, we don't fight at home. Also they don't spend a lot of time in each other's place because they live with family. But so
Got it.
they're spending most of it tells you a lot, right? They're spending most of their
Yeah.
time together outside of a home.
Yeah.
And when she's angry, what she does is she begins walking very fast. And we were like, okay, what if he starts walking fast? And she's like, no, he cannot walk faster than me. This is part of my fighting style. This would make me very angry. This would escalate it. And we
Wow.
turned it, but it was great. We turned it into a joke. We were like, okay, what if he's also angry and you both are
Yeah.
walking fast? And she's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
We can walk equally fast.
Yeah.
And then we were like, wouldn't it be funny if someone from the outside saw the two of you walking together, looking like you were very close, but actually you were angry because you were walking together but fast, equally
Yeah.
fast? And it was like great. And it was a kind of lighthearted, I guess,
Yeah.
conversation. And we talked about our
Yeah.
styles and we talked about what goes on internally. It was a great group. It was very like, why do you fight in this way? Oh, it's because of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel too upset to confront it in the moment, but so I'm not shouting, but I'm walking because I'm demonstrating. It was the
Yeah.
most like, let me walk you through what happens to me when I'm upset, how I react, what I would
Mm.
prefer to do, why I do it this
Yeah.
way. There was
Yeah.
a lot of recognition of I know this is not the best, but this is why.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like,
Yeah.
because my parents fought this way, therefore I don't want to fight this way, therefore I do this.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
it was kind of great. I thought like there's so few people I know this about in advance going in, or it tends to just come up along the way. I have not had too many so open conversations about it.
Yeah. And coming up along the when it comes up along the way, I don't think that's usually not the best time, right? Because at that
No.
point you're
Mhm.
already in a place of
You're
conflict or
embroiled.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're already
you're in
embroiled. Yeah.
conflict. And conflict
Yeah.
is not the time to have the conversation
Yeah.
about how you are typically in conflict.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't think you and I ever had this conversation.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We should do it. It'll be fun.
We should do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Do we wanna go into it now? Or wanna do it off
sure.
air?
We could do it on air. I don't know.
Yeah, okay,
I
okay. 'Cause this is great because I thought it through because I was talking to those people about it. Alright, this is my
mm,
fighting style. Some
alright.
of this so I
Okay.
haven't fought directly with you very much
Uh-huh.
at all,
I
almost
don't think
never,
at
which
all.
is
I don't think we've ever
honestly
had a fight.
and I think it's okay. I think it's usually I know it's correct to be wary of relationships in which you've not fought because maybe that means you have a lot of suppressed conflict, but I think we've just
I
done
don't think
the
so.
great thing
Yeah.
where we talk it out and we don't let it come to a head. We have not let it
Yeah.
come to a head and we've
Yeah.
caught it before it comes to a head and we've been in
Yeah.
arrangements where that has worked out. So I think we're
Yeah.
okay, even though we don't fight.
Yeah.
If we were ever to get in a fight, this is what I do. Okay.
Huh.
I am not good at speaking up for myself in the moment, usually because I'm too overwhelmed by emotion. This is what I figured out.
Mm. Mm.
I'm just feeling things too intensely. I'm a little bit paralyzed. I tend to let the moment pass. I also
Uh-huh.
am usually afraid of getting into conflict. So I'm a little avoidant. I'm
Mm.
trying to get better at it. When I'm upset,
Yeah.
I'm just feeling things too intensely. The moment we
Yeah.
go away,
Mhm.
I will collect myself and I will know what I think. Like
Yeah.
I just need a bit of space. I can very rarely do it right as it's happening.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
soon as
Yeah.
it's over, I have it together, and then what I
Yeah.
wanna do is I wanna journal and maybe cry and, like, process. I need to, like, get the feelings sorted into the feelings
Yeah.
boxes,
Yeah.
and then I
Yeah.
want to have an in-person conversation in which I will probably cry because I'm just emotional. I'm maybe not
Aw.
sad,
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah. Yeah.
very
Yeah.
a lot of feelings are pouring out. It has taken a lot to
Mhm.
get me to the
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah.
And in the best case scenario, we talk it out, we hear each other out, we have guarantee in the sense of like we end it knowing that we will not do that again going forward, right? We're going to not have the same problem happen because now we've understood it, or now we're going to act differently. And that thereby strengthens the relationship and the knowing what's going to happen next time. Like, I think the worst is if I leave a conflict type situation being like, we didn't resolve that and it's going to come up again in exactly the same way. That is just what I want to avoid.
Yeah.
Um, And hopefully in all of that, I have made space that I can hear out the other person because maybe I've misunderstood something or so forth. So I think it's like emotion must get out and then information must get in. And then we must resolve, we must take steps so that it does not happen again because this was not pleasant.
Yeah.
I think that's my whole writing arc, which takes a lot of time and energy and does not happen much. I think for me, it takes a great. Oh, this is my last thing. I think you know this. I think it is like a high relational mark for me to engage in this with somebody. I think I would just drop off. I don't do this very much. I have to really cherish the relationship. I'm probably a little avoidant. And I will not even take the step in most relationships, I think, which is probably, it's like a chicken and egg problem where sometimes you need to work things out to strengthen one. That's my whole fighting style.
So, it like what I'm getting from it is how considered it is. Like there's a lot of time, there's a lot of space and time involved in it.
Forever.
Yeah. And I think what's funny with the reason I think the space and time stood out is because my fighting style is the exact opposite. Yeah. So if I get mad, you will know right away, and I will not be mad after like a minute. Like I don't think I've ever been mad at somebody for longer than an hour. Like, for you, there's like this protracted time, right? Like for me, I don't think there can't be that time since just doesn't live in my body that long, Yeah.
Like you feel the anger and then it dissipates. Like you felt it, it's done.
Gone. Yeah.
Wow.
It's just gone. So fighting style. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think I fight very often. I don't know that, I don't know how avoidant it is exactly, or maybe it's just like maybe I've just done some pre-screening such that I'm not around people that I'm going to fight with. Like maybe like because what you're describing about you wouldn't even engage in this kind of thing unless you really cherish that relationship. I think maybe I do a version of that. Like maybe I just like don't even engage. Like maybe I'm just not even maybe I just like wouldn't even engage with someone that I would fight with like that. Something they do would make it that I would fight with them. So that's actually maybe even probably not worse, but like maybe it limits who I'm around more, I would say.
But I think maybe yeah, oh god.
No, what were you saying?
One version of that, something I really admire about you is that you let someone know right away if they've offended you, but or if somebody does something that I don't like, I kind of go into this like days long bar of like, why did they do that? How do I feel? I'm so unhappy. But is that right? I go into like a multi-day cycle, and I think you in the moment just look dead in the eye at the other person and go, why did you do that? And you do it in this funny way. Like you always know like the right tone to take. Like you're not 100% aggressive, but you will let somebody know as it happens that you feel a certain way about it, and then they can address it in the moment. Like I think we do our different versions of making it not boil up to a whole thing usually.
Yeah. No, but the thing I like about your approach is that like, for conflicts that are complex, like from a body level, you do need space and time to process. And maybe like one of the problems with my style is that like because it's so fast, like I don't know, like I'm thinking about situations where I actually have had fights with someone, and I think what would happen is the fight would end so fast that it wouldn't actually go to the core. Like it would be all made up, but then like the other person wouldn't really understand the degree to which it bugged me because they're like, oh, well, she's fine now. Like
seems to pass.
Yes, because that actually that has happened a lot. It's so fast that like, well, you okay, sorry. I've understood. This is my fighting style. If I'm upset, I will tell you right away.
Yep.
And if it's the kind of thing that makes me really upset, I will be very upset. there'll be no slow there's no slow,
Yeah.
you know, um,
Yeah.
and so for the other person, they'll be like, "Where did this come from? Like, you were
Mm,
fine, and now you're not." So that has happened in, in previous relationships.
mm,
Well, it's usually the same thing. It's just that I got over it
mm,
so quickly that it made the other
mm.
person think, "Oh, like, I maybe it just didn't affect you at all."
Which is not the case, but it is just that it was like a quick spike and then it comes down
Yes.
like
Whereas I
that.
think your method is really like it really like I think it resolves the thing more fully, I would say. Like mine almost feels like taking like a Tylenol if there's like a headache versus like figuring out what gave you the headache. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not to that,
Yeah. It's
I'm
not
sure it's
quite
not
that.
to that
Yeah, but
degree.
I
Yeah, but
there's like aspects.
yeah.
There's maybe one more interesting thing came up with this friend conversation
Yeah.
where there was one person who was saying quite genuinely well, it worked out. Like part of it was she began by saying like I don't really get into fights, and we dug into that a little more. It's always just like everyone just has a different fighting style, right? It comes out in some other ways. Maybe it's not
Right.
a you know,
Yeah.
but one theory that surfaced while we were just considering this was
Yeah.
somebody sort of mentioned they'd read somewhere that the degree to which we feel emotions varies from person to person, and it may be
Mm.
true. Like I don't think this is so one idea is maybe like some people feel anger more than others, or they feel more intensely than others. And this is not to say that there's
Mm.
some people who don't get angry, because I don't think that's true.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
everyone gets
yeah.
angry. But it's
Yeah.
true that you different emotions hit people harder, or they have
Mhm.
different they go deeper with that emotion than others, or maybe some people are able to feel anger fast and then roll it off fast, or
Yeah. Yeah.
or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's worth taking into consideration who, say for you, for example, just because you can get over anger very quickly if it's dealt with doesn't mean that it wasn't a
Real
lot of
when it
anger.
happens.
Real, very
Yeah.
real when it
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's good that you clear it out faster. I think I let it fester. That's the kind of flip side, right? If you take
Mm.
like many days to get through it, it has grown and
Yeah.
grown. Usually it has been around for a long time, and that is why it is so big and
Yeah.
nasty, because it was not dealt with earlier. So I guess there's pros and cons. It's a style. Like you and I have talked about this. I think I increasingly look at all behavior in life and think, this is your coping style.
Ah.
This is you coping.
Yeah. Yeah.
It all
Yeah.
makes sense when I just think this is how you are getting through your day. This is what you've devised that suits you the best. Is it effective? Maybe, maybe not. Is it good for other
Yeah.
people? Maybe, maybe not. These are all separate questions. The basic
Yeah.
understanding is this is your coping style. There we have
Yeah.
it.
Ah, this is true. This is true. Um,
And why not be upfront about it like Lubaba with her rules? This
I
is
was
it.
just thinking
Let's
about
start
Lubaba
here.
right now. Yeah,
Fantastic.
I was thinking about her in terms of her fighting style because I don't
Mm-hmm.
think she and I ever fought.
Yeah.
Um, I think she's similar to you in that, or at least when she was younger, like so, because she changed, like so when I first met her, I don't know, we were both like 7 or something, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember she was yeah, so something bothered her. I don't think she would necessarily say it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the moment she got to the point where she had a sense of self, like, when she was like a teen, like a 12 or something, I think she became quite good at like these are my boundaries. Like,
Right.
yeah, from right up
She's
from the
yeah.
outset.
From that point, she's magnificent. Took me 20 more years than her. Really?
Definitely. Yes,
Truly.
I haven't gotten there, so like yeah, this is great.
But I just like I'm so happy we brought in that you brought in those rules and we went over them, because they are just one of the finest examples I've seen of high etiquette, someone knowing themselves very well, welcoming. I can't stress this enough. Like the whole purpose of these rules is so that now she gets to host friends and they have a good time, and
Uh,
they can maybe eat chocolate chip cookies in their pajamas at 11 p.m. Like
yeah.
just like all the things
Yeah.
you want, you
Yeah.
have made them happen with your flawless
Yeah.
etiquette. Just well done, Lubaba. Amazing. And I feel so happy and lucky that, another thing this is a real tangent we don't have time for, but just, it's so funny the ways we become friends with people, the way circumstances allowed it, the way
Mm,
things just lined up at the time, the ways you were
yeah.
ready to be friends, the ways that you two became friends so many years ago. that could lead to this now just delights me and is beyond any kind of rules and etiquette, right? Like it
Yeah,
surpasses it. But also on
yeah.
the everyday plane of having people over to my apartment, here are my rules. Well done, Lubaba. High
Oh,
etiquette.
uh, I echo everything Vivian said. Well done. Gold
Well
star.
done. Gold star etiquette. We are thrilled to have you in our lives. We almost I feel like we should give her some kind of award. Something.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh, the no etiquette, like, yearly award where we find one person who
yeah.
exemplifies
Best
highest
etiquette.
best etiquette.
And the best thing is you will go stay with her very soon and you will have stories. And I hope she
Indeed.
has some etiquette questions for us. Although she seems perfectly, without need of she seems to have perfected and optimized. But if she has etiquette questions, I would be interested in hearing them. And listeners, if you have questions, please send them to us at noetiquettepodcast@gmail.com. We would be thrilled to have them. Thank you so much for joining us here. We will see you next time here on No Etiquette. And until then, it is good etiquette to invite cherished friends into your space, into late night fun conversations, having them continue being a part of your life, making room, and sharing your space with the people you care about. We will see you next time right here.
Good night.